Latinos currently make up 25% of school children and will become the third of the U.S. population by 2050. Yet educational equity is still an issue for 5.4 million Latino students. According to Latinos for Education, the first national Latino-founded and led organization solely dedicated to creating Latino leaders in education, needed are more Latinos in decision-making positions. Here in Massachusetts, Hispanic students make up 21% of students in our public schools, yet Latino teachers represent only 3% of the teachers in the classrooms. To tell us more about the organizations and its ambitious mission, we've invited Massachusetts Executive Director Lorena Lopera to the show today. Welcome to our update. Glad to have you here, Lorena. This is really, again, another example of just these sweeping demographic changes that are just roaring across the country here. Let's briefly go over the purpose of Latinos for Education and its mission. What void is your organization filling? What is it all about?
Yeah, so thank you for having me. Latinos for Education really exists to connect, develop, and place Latino leaders in positions of influence in the education sector. So we really want to make sure that there is adequate representation on the professional side to be educating and to be working with our students and our young people in the education sector.
Okay. Now, although it's Boston-based, your organization hopes to have a national impact. Isn't that correct?
Correct. So we are a national organization. We have another site in Houston, and we really see this as just the beginning. We've only been around for 4 years, and so we're 4 years young. And we really think that there's a lot of work that needs to continue to be done with a focus on the Latino community because of the population growth that we are driving.
Let's turn now our attention to your report. How and why did you feel this report was needed?
Yeah, so we recently commissioned a report that focused on Latino educators and really to understand how we can better recruit Latinos into the education sector as well as retain them. So right now, not only are we seeing a small number of Latinx professionals going into the teaching profession, but 43% of those professionals that do enter the space leave within the first 4 years of teaching. And so we think that it's important to we thought it was important to gather the voices of the Latino educators to really understand what was happening with our demographic.
Now, how did you compile the data?
Yep, so we had some qualitative and quantitative data. We did a survey in which we gathered more than 250 respondents across the state of Massachusetts, telling us what were some of the barriers that they were seeing, that they were facing going into the field, as well as what was driving them away from staying in the profession. We also did town halls. We did community meetings in which we were gathering this information because we really thought that it was important to pair the data with also the anecdotal pieces and the personal stories for why people were struggling with being able to enter and stay in the field.
What were some of your basic findings?
Yeah, so our basic findings are nothing entirely surprising. We found that Latinos have a difficult time entering the space because of salary inadequacies. So it's really difficult to go into teaching if the salaries aren't right, knowing that many of us come from humble backgrounds. It's expensive to come into the field, and so understanding that there need to be some loan forgiveness or financial incentives. Another piece is really workforce development. That this is an issue that needs to be focused and seen as workforce development. We have a lot of conversations, especially here in Massachusetts, on diversifying the STEM field, getting more students of color into healthcare, getting more students of color into finance. And while those are worthwhile, I really strongly feel that we are going to not be able to do that unless we begin by educating our students, by getting more Latinos in those classrooms to really focus on the success of our children.
What about recommendations?
Yeah, so our recommendations are really to provide financial incentives for Latinx professionals to go into the education space, to go into teaching, to see this as a workforce development, workforce issue, to provide support systems, so an actual network of Latino educators, which is some of the work that Latinos for Education does. And additionally, we have to acknowledge that because there are smaller numbers of people of color in the teaching profession, that means that we need to train all teachers. We need to train all administrators in what is cultural competency and how can we have more culturally relevant and linguistically sustaining practices in all of our schools.
Cultural competency. That's an interesting term. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think that there are differences in our cultures. One of our values is bridge across cultures, and we need to see the differences. We need to see the language differences, the food, the backgrounds, the experiences of our students and families as assets. And right now, I think we have a lot of deficit mindsets in which we think this person, because this parent doesn't show up to a parent-teacher conference, they don't care about our child's education. The reality might be starkly different. The times in which those meetings happen are really difficult for some migrant or even just Latino or people of color communities to be able to engage when work gets in the way, right? So there are just a lot of different things that we need to make sure that our teachers understand so that they see our students as bringing assets to the classroom and also their counterparts, their colleagues who are Latinos and people of color.
What about your Latino board fellowship? What's that all about?
Yeah, so we have a program that engages Latinos who are in the education sector. So people who are in the finance, who are in the tech industries, who are in healthcare, and what we do is we put them through a 6-month training program in which they learn about what is the state of education for Latinos, and then we pair them, we match them with nonprofit organizations so that they can serve on their boards. So we recognize that we just need Latino representation in the entire education spectrum, both from the direct service, being a teacher or being a program officer, as well as somebody who's on the board and helping to make decisions on behalf of students and families.
So you also have an Aspiring Latino Leaders Fellowship Program.
Correct, and that is a 10-month program that really engages with Latinos who are already in the education sector, and our purpose there is to build a community and build a support network for Latinos to stay within the education sector while really honing in their leadership skills and being able to advance their careers.
How can folks at home get involved?
There are a variety of ways. I think part of it is awareness that this is an issue, learning more, going to our website, reading the report at latinosforeducation.org, sharing it with your neighbors, sharing it with your students, with your child's teachers, asking superintendents what is being done about this, asking your elected officials what is being done about this. We need to focus on this community. We need to focus on our community because when Latino children succeed, everyone succeeds, and we need to make sure that there is a focus on our children.
One last thing. You mentioned earlier that people, a lot of Latinos are leaving the profession, or it's hard to get into, expensive. Is that because obviously you have to be educated to be a teacher, and education costs a lot of money? Is that one of the road barriers for needing, a higher pay?
Yes, so that is an absolute road barrier. You need not only a high school degree, you need a bachelor's degree. In many instances, you need a master's degree. You need to go through an exam that is also a licensure exam, which is also an expensive process. And so it is really difficult for people to be able to enter. We need to do something about that.
Okay, and we will leave it right there, although we could go on for a long time.
Yes.
Lorena Lopera from the Latinos for Education, thanks for coming in. Good luck with your great work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we will continue the discussion on the need for more educators of color as the 4th annual South Shore Regional Minority Educator Recruitment Fair is next week. We'll have all details when we come back right after this break.